And we're back. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the QIU Virtual Public Health Campaign 2020. I'm Gan.
And I'm Chan. So we're hoping that you've had your lunch because this next video is going to make you really hungry. Our Healthy Eating Experience video series continues as we show you how to make ratatouille the healthy way. Let's watch the video.
One first. If you're Today we will be making ratatouille. But first you need an onion. Take one and cut. Actually you need two, but just cut one first. If you're confused regarding the ingredients used, it's always listed in the description. Feel free to check it out. Grab your zucchini and start cutting it. Now these are thick slices. This is what you do not want on the zucchini. Cut it away. And then take your slices and cut it in half. Chop up some garlic. I'm using 3 cloves of garlic. Chop it up in any way you want. I usually slice it. It is advised to place the vegetables you've sliced in a bowl because they do take up spaces on the cutting board. And it's time to slice up the onions. Chop it up in any way you want, it doesn't matter. We are not making the Pixar style fancy ratatouille. You're making the traditional ratatouille. Now take your green zucchini, chop off the head, and start slicing it like how you did for the yellow zucchini. Stack them together to save time, slice it in half, and dump it in a bowl. For this recipe, you need some really good tomatoes that are really sweet. Now we do not want the skin on the tomatoes, and that's a really good technique to peel the tomatoes. You will have to first score it. We'll leave these tomatoes aside for now and proceed with our capsicum. Slice it in any way you want, literally. I'll be slicing it quite thinly, so it blends better with the dish. And now it's time to parboil the tomatoes in boiling water for 30 seconds. As you can see, the skin is starting to separate from the flesh of the tomatoes. You just run it over cold water, and it peels off fairly easily. There you have your skinless tomato. The other tomatoes the same way you did for the first one, and then slice them up. To slice the eggplant. Make sure you sharpen your knife and be extra careful when slicing an eggplant. A rocking motion is preferred over a chopping motion while cutting the eggplant. I like slicing my eggplants into smaller chunks. I think it gives a better texture. But of course, it's all personal preference, and you can do the opposite by slicing zucchinis into small chunks and the eggplants into larger ones. Heat up the pan, make sure it's dry. Do not add any oil into a wet pan. I'll be using olive oil for this dish. Heat it up thoroughly and throw in your onions and garlic. Stir fry it over a low heat. Now you just want to sweat the onions. You do not want to caramelize. Then add in the capsicum together with the other vegetables besides the tomatoes. The tomatoes soften really fast, so you do not want to add them into the dish right now. Stir it and mix it around just to make sure it doesn't stick to the bottom of your wok. If you're wondering if you can do this in a pot, the answer is yes. I just like using a wok because it heats up really fast. Continue stirring it until it has softened a little. Then cover it up and cook it under medium-low heat until it has softened. It usually takes around 5 to 10 minutes, and by now, it's time to add in the tomatoes. And season it by adding a little bit of salt and pepper. Add in a sprig of rosemary, and never forget the bay leaf. Crush it in your hands and add it in. Stir it and mix everything up. Then cover it and let it cook for 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, Your ratatouille is mostly done. Just mix it up a little and take away the bay leaves. Bay leaves add a subtle flavor to your dishes, but they do not taste good on their own. There you have it, ratatouille. Thank you for watching and stay healthy.
You know, Chan, my main takeaway from your video is how simple the recipe really is. It's a complicated sounding dish, but I think I can do it as well.
That's the whole point. Our healthy eating experience series is here to give you, nutritious, enjoyable recipes that anyone can make at home. It's supposed to be easy, so everyone can make it at home. And now it's the live Q&A session. So if you have any questions regarding this recipe and the ingredients, please leave it in the comment section, and I will answer the questions.
So let's start off with the first question here. So may I ask, what can the ratatouille be served with?
Ratatouille, usually we serve it on pasta. It's more of a side dish, or you can have it on its own. It works many ways. You can even put it on some quinoa, on even some pizza crust, if you like it. But of course, make sure that everything is low in sodium and low in fats. You do not want to add to some fried pizza crust, which I have seen some people do it. It's not really recommended. Now let's move on to the next question.
So the next question is, how long does the ratatouille last in the fridge?
Generally, it's around 4 days if you leave it in the fridge. But really, it sometimes depends on how you handle the food when you wish to store it in the fridge. You do not want to mix it with a wet spoon. Just make sure that it's not contaminated. And it could store up to 4 days. But generally, I would recommend 3 days and it's done. If you can't finish your ratatouille in 3 days, there is something wrong with your cooking technique. It's not tasting good. Or maybe you've just made too much. I mean, you have to learn to control your portions by then. So let's move on. Next question, please.
So the next question is, how do I reheat my ratatouille after I refrigerate it?
Okay, you can reheat it in the microwave. It's really up to you. What we usually do here is we reheat it by steaming it, or we reheat it on stove. Because you see, this ratatouille is actually quite watery. And by reheating on the stove, you will reconcentrate the juices, and it will make it just a little bit more flavorful. So reheat on the stove, or cover it up, and steam it.
So may I ask, is ratatouille supposed to be a mushy dish?
Well, yes, you are cooking the zucchinis and tomatoes for up to half an hour. Definitely will be mushy, but that's how it's supposed to be. And sometimes when we talk about ratatouille, I believe some of you out there will be thinking of the Pixar-style ratatouille from the cartoon. What they did is that they sliced the vegetables into very thin slices, and they lay it on a baking tray, and they have some sauce on it. They bake the whole thing. So now that's a different type of ratatouille. The ingredients are the same, but it's two different dishes, and they taste slightly different.
And also, may I ask, in the video, I actually saw that we are actually recommended to use olive oil instead of cooking oil. May I ask what's the reason actually?
Oh yeah, of course. See, olive oil has great benefits for our health, especially in lowering blood pressure. And that's the main point for today, in preventing hypertension. So it contains like larger folic acid, and it protects the bad LDL cholesterol from oxidizing, and it improves the function of the blood vessels. So these are the health benefits of olive oil. And of course, I would always suggest using olive oil. But of course, do keep in mind that it has a relatively low smoking point. Hence, you do not want to fry anything, and we don't recommend you frying anything as well. Just keep in mind, it has a low smoking point. I hope that answers your question. So let's move on to the next one.
So the next question from the ground is, what is the difference between ratatouille and the caponata?
Okay, put it this way. Ratatouille is a French dish, and caponata is a Sicilian dish, which is Italian dish. So that's the distinction. One is French and one is Italian. Next question, please.
So, should we actually soak the eggplant in salt water before actually cooking it?
No, we should not. That's the short answer. Why? Because we want to go on a low sodium diet. That's the first reason we do not want to soak it. And unless you are frying it, there's not really much reason to soak the eggplant in salt water. And when you soak them in salt water, it's not just like a pinch of salt and you rinse it. That's not soaking. You literally soak them in salt water. It absorbs the salt. And we do not want that. And for ratatouille, you don't have to soak it. It tastes really good.
And
Next question, please.
let's move on. So the next question is, ratatouille eaten hot or cold actually?
I would say somewhere in the middle, like slightly warm, maybe room temperature. Because when the ratatouille is too hot, the subtle flavors are gone. You can't taste the subtle flavors. When it's too cold, it's just, in our opinion, it's a little disgusting, I would say. It's something mushy, and you don't want to eat any mushy things cold. So I would say room temperature is the best. It brings out the flavor of the ratatouille, and it's not cold. That it's the texture. It's kind of off-putting. So
the next question is,
yeah, that's a really good question. Is
Yeah.
ratatouille supposed to be mushy? Yes, it is. Of course, it is mushy. You're cooking it for 30 minutes, and it doesn't make sense for it to not be mushy.
so let's move on. So can I ask, what can I substitute for the eggplant in a ratatouille?
You can use carrots. It gives the sweetness of the eggplant, but of course, eggplants are not really hard to get, and you don't really need any substitutes for it. So I would say, since it's easy to get, just go for eggplants.
And from the video that we have watched just now, if we realize that actually the eggplant, you don't actually slice off the skin of it. Can I ask, is it good to actually leave the skin on, or we should slice off the skin when we prepare it?
No, this really depends. Okay, if your eggplant is relatively large in size, it's relatively old, I would say peel the skin off. It's going to be quite tough. And if it's a small eggplant, relatively small one, it's quite a young one, you don't have to slice it out. You can leave it on. But as I mentioned in the video, sharpen your knife, because the skin is quite tough. And don't chop, just slip. So just use a rocking motion and slice through it, but be really careful. So someone asked, is it different from the movie? Of course it's different from the movie. This is the traditional ratatouille. It's not the Pixar style ratatouille, as I mentioned. For the Pixar style, it's sliced and it's baked. The presentation is really good, but that is very time consuming because as you slice it, you have to choose those that are in similar size. And if you look at a zucchini, it's not completely cylindrical. Some parts are larger, some parts are smaller. You have to choose those parts that are regularly shaped. And that's the hard part. And for the remaining ingredients, we just blend it and make it sauce like how we make a traditional ratatouille. That's why that's the most time-consuming part is slicing and choosing the slices. Now, that's really different from the movie.
And also, we will be using tomatoes in the ratatouille dish. So can we actually use canned tomatoes actually?
We can, but of course I would definitely recommend going for fresh tomatoes because, see, canned tomatoes, some of them are slightly cooked, and it really affects the flavor. Sometimes it imparts a slightly metallic taste to it. So I would always recommend going for fresh tomatoes and sweet ones. Try to go for those on vines, fresh ones, really fresh ones. You need good tomatoes for this dish. If you're using regular greenish tomatoes, it will taste quite sour. So I would recommend going for fresh, really sweet tomatoes.
And so that's a really nice question there. Which is actually healthier, zucchini or the cucumber?
That's a good question. Zucchini and cucumber, okay? I would always go for zucchini. First of all, the taste, definitely. Zucchini has quite a sweet taste to it. Cucumber is relatively tasteless, so I'll go for zucchini. But if you're talking about the nutrition values, zucchini is really rich in vitamin B, vitamin C, and it's richer in potassium and iron, as well as proteins and fibers. That's why I would always go for zucchini instead of cucumber. It seems to be better in every aspect. But I'm not saying that cucumber is not good. In some cases, you do need something a little bit more blunt to go with your dishes. But given a choice, always I would go for zucchini.
So we actually have two types of zucchini. So is the green one better or the yellow one better?
Well, there's not much difference, to be honest. The difference is very slight. It's in terms of flavors. If you're talking about health benefits, they are more or less the same, ranging from improved digestions to lowering the risk of heart diseases. As you can see, this recipe, it's vegetarian, obviously, has a lot of ingredients that are really good for preventing hypertension and are really good for our body. They're rich in a lot of vitamins, a lot of essential minerals, and the olive oil in it, it helps in lowering the blood pressure. So, any more questions?
So there's a question there. How this food actually helps with?
Wait, I see one question here. Why is the ratatouille watery? Okay, this is a very good question. Zucchinis are very high in the water content. Not just zucchinis, actually every vegetables in this dish is really high in water content, up to 90%. And that's why when you cook, you don't see me adding any water because there's really a lot of water in it. And when you're done cooking, it will be quite watery. You can cook it longer for the sauces to evaporate, but it's all about personal preference. It will be watery because of the high water content of these vegetables.
So, and back to the question that I was about to mention just now, how does this food help with patients with hypertension?
Okay, this dish, it helps a patient with hypertension in a lot of ways. First of all, it's a vegetarian dish. It's made with just vegetables, but it's not bland like some salads without dressings. So for someone that wants to lose weight to lower their blood pressure, they can have this. And it's very flavorful. It actually encourages you to eat these really healthy foods. And of course, not to say the ingredients that we put in this dish. There's olive oil, there's zucchini, eggplants, tomatoes, really rich in minerals and vitamins. It is a really healthy dish. And that's why I would recommend this dish for people with hypertension, okay? In an effort to lower your blood pressure, to lose weight.
So that's a really good suggestion here. So if you guys are on a weight management plan or would like to lose some weight, you guys can try out this dish. And it's very flavorful and it's also very healthy. And it will definitely provide all the nutrients we need.
Yeah, now let's move on to the next question. Can we use tomato puree? Yes, you can, but it will be even more watery. So when you cook fresh tomatoes, they release waters, but there's still something to hold on to the water in it. If you're using tomato puree, you will make more of a pasta sauce than you will be making a ratatouille. So I just recommend using fresh tomatoes. It's not really hard to get fresh tomatoes, so I would recommend you going for the fresh ones instead of the canned ones and tomato puree. And of course, the tomato purees, you buy outside, it's rich in salt. So I would not recommend that. So let's move on to the next question. Okay.
So if you guys have any more questions, just bombard us with questions. So I see there's no more question from our audience.
No, wait, I see one. Can I eat the seeds of the eggplant? Yes. You will not remove the seeds of the eggplant. It's best to cook it together. It will be a hassle trying to remove it. So just cook with it. So if there are no more questions, oh wait, there's one more
There's
again.
another one. Yes. Can
I just eat it alone or mix it with rice? It's really up to you. I do eat it with rice sometimes. We all do actually. But sometimes we do prefer eating it alone because when you mix it with rice, it kind of turns a little bland. So on its own, you'll get some flavors of vegetables. This dish actually made us like vegetables, like vegetarian dishes, because it's so flavorful and packed with nutrients. It's the best dish ever. This got us into liking vegetables.
And there's a last question over there.
Well, that might not be the last, there might be a lot more. So where can we get the recipe? Oh yeah, that's a very good question. The recipe, the detailed amount of ingredients is posted already on our Instagram page. That's why I say, please follow us, subscribe to our channel, and you can search for the recipes right there. And our recipes go in grams. It's not in teaspoons. And honestly, for this recipe, you don't need any teaspoon. You just cut up the vegetables, and just one sprig of rosemary, one bay leaf, some olive oil, and that's all. It's a really simple recipe that packs a lot of flavor and has a lot of health benefits.
Yeah, so we move on to the next one. Can we add spices like pepper to enhance the taste of the dish?
Definitely. You can add spices, but the only spice I added in this dish was rosemary. Well, if you consider pepper as well, I did add some pepper in it. So you can add spices, but as I said, experiment yourself. Get some spices and know what works best with which vegetable or meat. I hope that answers your question. So, moving on. Is zucchini a vegetable or fruit? Okay, this is a good question. In culinary context, zucchini is considered a vegetable, but in botanical context, zucchinis are considered fruits, and they are the swollen ovary of the zucchini flower. So it's quite an interesting thing about this zucchini. Moving on. Okay, it seems like there's no more questions, and this marks the end of our live Q&A session. And we're not done yet. Our next healthy eating video will be on 3 p.m., just in time for tea. So once again, we'd like to remind everyone to participate in our fitness hashtag challenge, and make sure to subscribe and follow us on Facebook and Instagram with the username of PHC2020QIU. I repeat, it's PHC2020QIU. See you guys at 3.
everyone, and welcome back to Healthy Eating series as we continue our first day of the QRU Virtual Public Health Campaign. As promised, we are back with another fantastic dishes and recipe that you can accomplish at home. Once again, here's our chef in the making, Chan Yong Lee. So let's watch the video.
Hi there, lovely people. Today I will be making a simple chicken stock. Now, what you need right here, some carrots, some parsley, onions, and celery. But remember, the ingredients will be listed in the description. And of course, some peppercorns, bay leaf, and some salt. First thing, always remember, you have to start with cold water, about 2 to 2.5 liters. Carrots, clean it up, leave the skin on. That's where all the flavor is. Chop the carrots into chunks and dump it in the cold water. Then chop up some celery. Chop them into thick slices. You don't need it too thin. Now for the parsley, save up the leaves. Use it for some other dishes. Never dump the stalk because that's where all the flavors are. Just cut away the stalk and dump it into the cold water. Some white onions. Chop them into quarters. So put all of them into the cold water. And next, you'll need 2 chicken carcasses. You can get it easily. It's fairly cheap. Or you can use half a roast chicken. And now you just put everything into the cold water. Now, grind up some black pepper and add around 6 grams of it. Add some sea salt to it. And the most important ingredient of all, the bay leaf. It's that simple. Now we cover it up and place it on stove. Bring to a boil and let it simmer for about an hour and a half. And there you have it, a simple chicken stock that could be used for multiple dishes like risottos and pasta. Today we will be cooking chicken ragu bianco, an Italian dish. Now first, we oil the pan with a little bit of olive oil and we wait for the oil to heat up. Now, while waiting, you can use this time to chop up your vegetables and chicken. If you're fast enough, or if you're slow, then do it before you add the oil into the pan. Now, what we need here for this dish is carrots, celery, thyme, garlic, chicken, and some white onions. And as usual, the exact amount of ingredients will be listed in the description below. Feel free to check it out. Now add in your vegetables and fry them up. You can choose to add in all at once, like what I'm doing, or you can just fry the onions first and caramelize them. It will give a slightly different flavor to it. At this point, you can fry your vegetables at a medium-high heat or high heat. It's really up to you. Just don't burn the vegetables. At this point, it's time to add in the garlic. Garlic burns really easily, so you do not want to add it from the start. You want to add it halfway through your cooking. And do notice that this garlic is crushed. It is not minced, it is not diced. Because the garlic is here to provide some flavor, and not everyone likes garlic. So when you crush it, you can extract the flavor, but it's easier to pick it out later on. At this point, your vegetables are soft, and it's time to add in the chicken. I'm using chicken breast here, but you can use chicken thigh or drumsticks. Just remember, this chicken is diced, it is not minced. If you're using a non-stick pan for cooking, don't use a metal chopstick on it. You will just ruin your pan. You can use a wooden chopstick or some wooden spatula on it. Just keep in mind that no metal objects should ever touch your non-stick pan. Continue frying until the outer surface of the chicken is white. If it's brown or black, you've went too far. Dump everything and start all over again. And now, it is time for some grape juice and lemon juice. How much? Well, the exact amount of ingredients is in the description as usual. Stir it up and let it reduce. As you can see here, the grape and lemon juice are almost dried up. And now it's time for the homemade chicken stock and sprigs of thyme leaves. Bring it up to a boil and turn the flame down. Let it simmer on low heat for around 30 to 35 minutes or until it has reduced to a sauce-like consistency. And never forget to add in the bay leaf. Or you can add in 2 if you like the flavor. It's not a really strong flavor, so I like more of it in my sauce. Now it's time for the pasta. Boil some water and add in around 100 grams of pasta. And don't forget to salt the pasta water. That's a really crucial part. Boil it for as long as the instructions on the package states. Now as the stock has reduced to a sauce-like consistency, it is time to remove the bay leaves and the thyme leaves. At this point, you can also choose to remove the garlic if you do not want it in your pasta. Then it's time to add in the cooked pasta. Now mix it around and toss it. You want to coat the pasta with the sauce. And for some finishing touches, you add in the chopped parsley leaves. These are fresh parsley. They have a more distinctive flavor than the dried one. Toss it and mix it around once more, and you're good to go. And there you have it, chicken ragu bianco. Stay tuned to our campaign for more cooking videos. Thank you for watching and stay healthy.
There you have it, the third and final session of the healthy eating series for today. We're supposed to have 3 square meals a day, and I think Chan covered 3 fantastic dishes for you to try at home.
Well, trust me, I had a lot of fun, and I think you will too, especially during the eating part. Don't worry, we'll have more cooking sessions tomorrow. Before that, now comes the live Q&A session. And as usual, if you have any questions regarding the recipes, please leave it in the comments below. My partner here will relay the questions to me, and I will provide you with an answer.
So let's see, is there any questions?
Come on, guys, drop in your questions. Don't be shy.
Okay, so I have one question. What does the ragu and the bianco means?
It's actually an Italian word. Ragu actually means meat sauce, and bianco means white. Because usually when we cook pasta, especially in Malaysia, we cook it in tomato sauce, like spaghetti bolognese.
Yeah.
That's tomato sauce, it's red. So when we talk about bianco, it means there's no tomato, it's white sauce, white meat sauce. Yeah, that's why we use grape juice and lemon juice instead of tomato, to give it a slight tang, but at the same time, we don't want the tomato.
Okay.
Okay. we have some
So
questions.
there's another question from Joy. Why do we use less salt in cooking?
Well, that's a really good question that I've been waiting for all day. You see, okay, the salt, when we talk about salt, we talk about table salt. Usually that's what we use in cooking, which is sodium chloride.
Yeah.
So when you add a lot of salt into your meal, salt intake increases, and that increases the amount of sodium in your bloodstream. And this increase of sodium will cause the ability for kidneys to remove H2O to decrease, hinder this ability. And therefore, this will result in increased blood pressure due to extra fluid and strain on the delicate blood vessels. So there are quite some other effects of salt related to hypertension, like especially on the arteries. When you eat too much salt, as I said, it puts extra strain on the inside of the arteries. And so to cope with this strain, the arteries will become stronger and thicker, strengthen themselves, and the space inside will become smaller. Therefore, this contributes to the rise of blood pressure. It's like a cycle.
So,
Take more salt,
yeah.
more fluid, more pressure, and this increased pressure causes it to strengthen, and the size of the lumen becomes smaller, and the blood pressure increases again.
So that means low salt, that's
And that will help lower the blood pressure.
Okay.
That's the main point here.
Okay.
Lower salt. And I believe you do see me salting the pasta water. It's basically around 1 teaspoon of salt for 2 liters of water. Usually what they do is 1 teaspoon per liter of water for cooking pasta. I do it for 2 liters of water to reduce the amount of salt. But you need salt there to flavor the pasta a little bit because we are not cooking the pasta in the sauce. The sauce is just coating the pasta. Therefore, you do need a little bit of salt to flavor it, so it won't be too blunt.
Okay. So the next question. What parts of a chicken we use mostly?
Oh, okay. For this dish, it's mostly chicken breast. But I did mention that you can use chicken thighs or drumsticks. Of course, I would advise not using them as frequent because if you compare chicken breast with chicken thigh, we'll just compare both of these first. For 100 grams, chicken breast has around 3 grams of fat, and chicken thigh has almost 3 times the amount, around 9 grams of fat. And it's quite a substantial amount if you look at it this way. It's like 3 times.
Yeah.
And if you talk about the calorie count, chicken breast has a lower calorie content than chicken thigh. If we compare it in 100 grams, chicken breast has around 165 kilocalories, and chicken thigh has around 209 kilocalories. That's the comparison. But if we're talking about protein content, of course, difference will be quite obvious. Chicken breast has the highest protein content. It has 31 grams for every 100 grams, and chicken thigh has only like 25 grams. Yeah, that's around that. That's why I would always say go for chicken breast. It's better for your weight management, and it's low in fat. It helps in lowering, not say lowering, I would say to prevent this hypertension. So go for this white meat, chicken breast.
Okay. So the next question. Why we use grape juice instead of the wine in the cooking?
Well,
Can we
Of
actually
course.
use white wine?
yeah, of course it's up to you, but I don't like wine, to be honest.
Okay.
Okay, I tend to stay away from alcohol. Actually, we all do. We tend to stay away from alcohol beverages. It's not really good for hypertension.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
but of course, as you're cooking, the alcohol evaporates. Okay, and I wouldn't say that wine is really bad. It does have some antioxidants, but we would prefer using grape juice and lemon juice. Okay, you're not drinking it, you're cooking with it, and hence this substitute actually works quite well. But the proportion of lemon juice to grape juice is really important. Too much lemon juice, you'll end up like a vinegary taste. It's very sour, and you do not want that. Too much grape juice, and you'll end up with something a little bit too sweet. And that's why use grape juice.
Okay. So the next question. Why we use bay leaf as one of the ingredients?
Okay, bay leaf contains some enzymes that helps to break down the protein and makes digestion easier. It's better on your stomach. And of course, bay leaf has a really subtle flavor that when you add to your dish, it adds something to it that you can't pinpoint. But without the bay leaf, you know something is not right. Something is just lacking. Yeah, the flavor, there is something there that is just lacking. So bay leaf is added for health benefits and flavor as well.
Okay.
So let's move on to the next question.
So is it possible for us to have other alternative for salt as an ingredient?
Yeah, of course, there are salt replacements sold in supermarkets. If I'm not wrong, they are potassium chloride salts.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, but as usual with anything, use it in moderation. Don't think that because it's a salt substitute that you can abuse it. Never abuse anything. Use everything in moderation. Now, that's the most important part.
So does potassium chloride actually increase our blood pressure? Does it lead to hypertension?
Well, this is a really good question. Short answer is no.
Oh.
But for a more detailed answer, I would say it's best to consult with experts in the field. Like we are pharmacists,
Yeah.
our role are more of an advisory role. We aren't involved in any diagnosis and we're not involved in prescribing. So these stuff, it's best to consult your own healthcare provider.
Yeah.
Don't
And I'm
consult
sure
an expert.
nutrition.
Yes.
Yeah, nutrition. So the next question, what type of pasta is usually used?
Oh, for this dish, we usually use penne, which is what we used in the video. See, the reason is because it's hollow in the middle. So sometimes bits of chicken can get stuck in there.
Oh.
And that's like a surprise. Like suddenly bite on pasta, oh, chicken inside.
Yeah.
See, and because the sauce is quite thick, it sticks to inside of the pasta. You get more surface area, more sauce, and it's going to taste really good. That's why we usually use penne. But of course, there are other substitutes, like you can use spaghetti or spaghettini, linguine, fettuccine, any pasta. Basically, any pasta that you like. But personally, we prefer penne.
Okay. So the next question. Can we add only the lemon juice to replace the white wine? I thought this one.
Yeah, well, we weren't really using wine in the video. That was grape juice and lemon juice.
Yeah.
But yeah, it sort of worked as a wine substitute. I have to be perfectly honest here. Can you use only lemon juice? No, it's like just adding vinegar to your dish. It will be really sour, really tangy. So the proportion has to be right, as I said.
With the grape juice, is it?
Grape juice and lemon juice.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't lose any one of them. You can't use just grape juice. So proportion, that's the most important part.
Yeah. So the next question. Why do you add celery to this dish?
Well, celery, of course, first thing is flavor. Second thing, health benefits.
Vegetables.
Yes, fiber content, and it's really rich in antioxidants. So it sort of protects our blood vessels. So you see, that's the good thing of this dish. There are a lot of vegetables in it, so there's a high fiber content, and it prevents the oxidative damage in our bodies.
Yeah.
So flavor-wise, it adds a depth of, it adds depth to the dish, like sort of the umami feeling. It adds flavor to it, just like when you were cooking any other stews, like lamb stew, you will add in celery. And chicken stock, yeah, like the stock that we prepared, we added in celery because we wanted that flavor. You can't really taste the fresh celery flavor, but it adds the umami flavor to it. So let's move on to the next question.
What is the difference between chicken stock and chicken broth?
Okay, chicken stock. This is a really short answer, actually. Chicken stock is mostly made from the bony parts of the chicken. As I said, we use chicken carcasses. And chicken broth uses the meat part. There's more meat than bones. So chicken stock,
Just
bones. Yeah. Chicken broth, meat. So this is, that's the difference. That's the main difference between both.
Okay, I hope that answer your questions. So the next one, can we add anything as topper?
Okay, we didn't add anything as a topper, but traditionally this dish, the Italians use Parmesan cheese as a topper, but I would recommend against it. You can add maybe just a tiny bit. It adds a depth of flavor, maybe for the first few bites, because you're not going to add a lot to it. But you can add a little bit of Parmesan cheese. However, to keep in mind, it is high in fat and high in sodium. That's why I do not recommend it.
It's bad for health.
Yes, it is.
Taking too much is bad.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next question, what is olive oil used in cooking?
Olive oil. Okay, olive oil, there's really a lot of health benefits, and there's been a lot of study done on this olive oil, on how it's good to our body. It's like an anti-inflammatory. It reduces inflammation, and it's very rich in this monounsaturated fat. The oleic acid is around 73%. That's oleic acid, and this is the thing that reduces the inflammation, that has the anti-inflammatory properties. Of course, it's rich in antioxidants. These are like very biologically active, and they reduce the oxidative damage in our body. As you realize, we go around the anti-inflammatory and antioxidant routes. Yes, and these are the things that we need
to protect our
protect our blood
vessels.
vessels. Yes. So basically, that's main reason you need to use olive oil and not regular cooking oil. Of course, another plus point of using olive oil is the flavor. It is very rich in flavor, quite a distinctive flavor, and it suits very well for this type of. Well, how to reduce the sweetness of a grape juice? I would say just get a grape juice that is not so sweet. I mean, if something is sweetened, you can't really make it less sweet. It is sweeter.
Yeah, can we just use in low amount?
You can use in low amount and add water. But see, the main point of adding this grape juice is not just for the sweetness and the tanginess of lemon juice that's added in. We want the flavor. See, we don't want the sugar or salt. We just want the flavor. Okay, and that's why if you use it in small amounts, there's not enough flavor in it. The dish will be quite bland. As you can see, I did not salt the dish. I salted the pasta water, and there's just a little bit of salt in that amount of chicken broth. So you need these flavors to make it not so bland.
Okay. So the next question is, how do we actually prevent pasta from sticking to the pan?
If your pasta is sticking to the pan, you're doing it wrong, obviously. Okay, first things first. Make sure the pasta is not cold. Okay, you need to. It needs to be fresh from the boiling water. Pasta water has a little bit of starch. It makes the whole sauce creamier, so it makes it sticky. Okay, so if it's cold and if your flame is too high, it will stick to the pan. And that's why I would say, if it sticks to your pan, you're doing it wrong. There's no prevention. It's just doing it the correct way. Yeah.
Just follow the working procedure.
Yeah, just follow the procedure.
Okay. So, any questions? How do we know the penny is already cooked in the boiling boil water?
Okay, a quick test.
Mhm.
Just take one up and eat it. Yes, just try it. Because we usually have the time stated on the package, usually like maybe 9 to 10 or 9 to 11 minutes, sometimes 12 minutes. Just follow it.
Mhm.
Just follow it, it will be cooked. But maybe sometimes the water is not boiling and you added it too early, you started the timer too early,
Mhm.
it doesn't seem cooked.
Just take one.
Yeah, you just take one and try.
Okay.
It's not going to be raw. If it's still crispy, then yeah,
Continue
obviously
to-
you just added in like a minute or so. So that you don't really have to test it. Just follow the instructions.
Okay.
That's the foolproof way. That's the way I would recommend.
Okay. The next question. Do we need to wait until the penny is cold?
Oh no, of course not. As I said just
So
now.
you just take them out
Yes.
from the boiling water and just add it.
Yeah, the best is when it's just out of the boiling water
Mhm.
and add it in to the sauce. So the sauce coats it.
That's the best.
Yeah, that's the best way.
Wow. Okay. So the next question is, what is the difference between ragu and ragu?
Okay, the same pronunciation but different spelling. Ragu and ragu. Let's just say it rag out for
Raga.
right now, so there won't be any confusions,
Okay.
okay? But it's pronounced ragu.
Mhm.
Okay, so ragu, R-A-G-U, is an Italian term for meat sauce. Okay, it's basically pasta sauce, pasta meat sauce, and ragout is a French dish, actually a French stew made with vegetables, meats, or fish. So one is an Italian dish, one is a French dish, one is meat sauce, one is stew. So that's the difference between ragu and ragu.
So it's two different things. Right?
It's totally two different
Okay.
things from two different countries as well,
Okay.
different origins.
Okay.
Okay, let's move on to the next question. Is there any more?
Is there any more?
Can you describe the flavors? Well, try it yourself. Cook it and try it yourself and let me know the flavor. Okay, but of course I will describe it right now. It is slightly tangy, a little bit sour, and there's like sweetness in it. Okay, and because we added celery, on the back, there's like umami flavor punching through. Like suddenly, the first bite will be a little bit sour, a little bit sweet, and that's something that tastes like MSG, if that makes sense. It tastes umami.
Mhm.
That's the name for the flavor. It's umami. Then you have chicken. Basically, it's quite a savory dish, but it's still very refreshing. It's really unique on its own. Really, just try it out.
Yeah, and it's good for health.
Yeah, I can describe it for hours, but you wouldn't understand it until you truly try it.
Yeah.
So try it at home. Join our cooking challenges.
Yes.
Okay, so move on to the next question. Interesting. Yeah, it's
Interesting, yeah.
interesting.
Any more questions? Guys, if you guys have any question, just leave your question down in the comment section.
Okay,
below.
yeah. Well, why we use baby leaf? I believe we have
Yeah, I
address
think we have
that.
already covered this.
any more?
Any more questions?
Okay, I think this marks the end of our live Q&A session.
Okay, but we are not done today with the topic of healthy eating though. Tonight, we are welcoming the nutrition advisors and house officer at the University Malaya Medical Center, Dr. Chin Si Ming, who will give us a talk titled, Where Did It Go Wrong with My Eating Habits? So if you want to know more what you may be doing wrong, you don't want to miss tonight's talk. So don't forget, 8:30 p.m. tonight, right here on our Facebook and YouTube. See you there.
And don't forget, please join our fitness hashtag challenge and subscribe and follow our page on Facebook and Instagram with the username of PHC2020QIU. I repeat, it's PHC2020QIU. See you tonight.